All right, here we go, y'all. Peace and blessings, everybody. Welcome to Speaking with Ajani Bakari Talk Show. I'm your host, Ajani Bakari. I got another great episode for you. I have a special guest host, Ray Johnson, the Lord of the Perfect Black. This is a brother that I've been following for a long time on Facebook and Instagram. We shared plenty of information. In fact, he writes books. But I'll let him introduce himself and let everybody know who he is. Peace, brother. Let everybody know who you are, my man.
Peace, peace. Yeah, my name is Ray Robinson actually, but my Facebook name is Ray Johnson. Yeah, I'm a two-time author. You can check out my books on Amazon. Ray Robinson. I wrote one, A Journey to Health Consciousness, which is I'm a lifelong vegan health coach. So got a lot of good recipes and a lot of different information for people that deal with health at all levels. People trying to lose weight, people dealing with serious diseases. It's all in the book. And I wrote another book. I used to work on Wall Street with the stocks, and marijuana is legal in a bunch of states. So wrote a book on how to make money in that from the stock market also. So yeah, but I deal with all type of information. So this is something I'm very studied in also. This topic here.
Word. I actually purchased your book on the stocks when it comes to marijuana, the marijuana industry. So I'm
Yeah,
very familiar with that. So that was one of the things that we first met up on. But tonight's topic though is going to be about the Africans' involvement in the African slave in the transatlantic slave trade. Were they sellouts? Because last episode we had a discussion. I challenged folks who thought that Africans actually quote unquote sold Africans to have this discussion, and you agreed to come on, but you did agree that sold was not the proper term. Am I correct?
yeah, it was traded.
You
You know,
trading,
you
trading.
can't you can't sell because there was no agreed upon currency like paper fiat. It wasn't no agreed upon fiat back then, but there was a trade that went on.
Word. Okay, I got you. I got you now. There, obviously I agree with you because we talked about that, right? Because what currency would the Europeans have that would actually reflect the same value in African cultures and African societies, right? What
Yeah,
currency what currency would Africans be using at that time also that would relate enough to where they would want to make trade or actually buy or sell human beings at that cost. So we got that question taken out of the scenario. But the other question I wanted to ask was, which you didn't get a chance to answer, was if there was Africans, quote unquote, selling Africans. Do you? All right. First to start with, do you believe that there was an actual slave trade prior to the Europeans arriving in the west coast of Africa?
yeah. Slavery is a natural thing. There's always people who feel like they're better than people and they don't want to work. This is a as far as back in civilization, you got Kemet had slaves, Nubia, all civilizations had a bunch of rich people, a little bit of rich people that wanted to dominate and control a bunch of poor people and have them doing the menial task that they didn't want to do. This always existed. So, but it wasn't as, I don't think it was as brutal. You don't hear about I don't want to use the R word. We didn't do that to our people. We didn't torture our people, but you did have them, doing they were forced to do it. A lot of times you had invasions from tribe to tribe, and they
Mhm.
would take people over, you know, and make them work the jobs that they didn't want to do. You're basically a slave because you can't if you don't want to do that job, you probably get killed.
Okay, so
Definitely get
so
killed.
so forced labor is your identity or your actual definition of slavery, correct?
Yeah, forced
Okay,
slavery. Yeah,
forced labor. All right. Well, see, that's where obviously where I would differ in the conversation. Through the studies is like I always tell people that the reality is that you can't enslave someone in their own land. It is impossible to force someone into labor when they're in their own land. They can go anywhere and basically escape your bondage. They don't have to stay with you and be under your bondage. They can roam and go anywhere and live anywhere for free and don't have to worry about that, especially in places like the Americas and Africa, which has an abundance of everything. So the idea that you needed people to actually work for you to have is kind of a false conception, which is why slavery was so needed for Europeans, because they didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't have the abundance of life and the things that were needed to survive. So they had to take and steal from one another to be able to survive. So it's a different mentality. The idea of people working, yeah, of course, people have to work as a community. I do believe that people work, but not necessarily by force. I believe the people that were workers as far as building the pyramids, these were craftsmen, just like people who build and construct things today. Even though some people do associate today's society with as slavery too, would you consider working today's society as a form of slavery?
Definitely, we working for fiat currency, and fiat currency is not real. So
Okay,
anybody that's working for fiat currency is a slave, and the
okay.
people
I
who print
no no
people who
I, no I
print the
got you.
fiat currency are the
No, no,
slave
I got you. I
owners.
hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. So you have broadened slavery to a more of a, listen. If you have to work to survive, and somebody else is making that survival for you, then that's a form
You're
of
a slave.
slavery. Okay, I got what you're saying. Okay, so I got what you're saying. All right. So prior to that, Africans had slavery, but was it the same form of slavery though that existed in the United States, or was it a different form of slavery?
Now, like I said earlier, based on my studies,
Mm-hmm.
you always had elites that didn't want to work.
Okay.
Always got people who feel like they're better than other people, and they are of a higher class, and they don't want to work in the field for 10 hours a day. And this is why you had these invasion even before the European got there, and they would have, but they would incorporate them into their communities though. But your task was to do the jobs nobody else want to do, and they would take the women, make the women concubines of the powerful men, and this is what went on before the European. But he really spread it out to some savage, behavior, and that's why our people gave, you know, different tribes to him because they just look, hey, we've been taking over nations
Mm-hmm.
and spreading out to people. So you want to buy these people? Here, come and take them too.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. The buying part is what gets me. How
I
are
mean,
you
you
gonna?
wanna you wanna take these people? All right, give us something for them. You got alcohol, you got mirrors, you got silk,
Mm-hmm.
you got whatever they felt that the European had of value is what
But
they
see,
exchanged.
but that's the thing. The European had nothing of value other than weapons, and
No, actually, most people actually traded for alcohol. Actually, that was a big thing. The Europeans were nice with that alcohol, making them alcohol recipes, and Africans
yes,
really, really, really loved that. The silk too. They
the,
they gave they traded them for silk.
95% of the items that were traded for actual human property or human beings was liquor and guns. That
Yeah,
in
liquor
fact,
was a big thing.
and in fact, the Europeans made it to where the only way you could actually acquire those items from them is if you brought them people. and
Yeah,
and that's what people don't want to necessarily dwell into, because in reality the Africans could have gave up gold for silk. They could have gave up gold for guns. They could have gave up a lot of things, ivory, copper. There was many of material and resources that Africans had that the European was trying to seek when they were going into Africa. But what they basically were using the guns for, because you're not going to give guns to a powerful African nation with a
mhm.
powerful military. You understand? And another thing people have to understand is African culture, because what you were stating, like what you were stating about like the whole invasion things. You know what I mean? African did have their own warfare, right? They did have their own battles and their own issues. So it wasn't like, oh, well, they got into warfares when Europeans started. But it was a different type of warfare, and I can prove it. It wasn't the same type of warfare. They were way less brutal than the Europeans. The concept of taking women as concubines and that's also a European thing. That's not something Africans were doing. Like, as like I said, when you're in the African continent, you study African culture, you see the tolerance and the idea of different ethnic groups in Africa. As an example, Nigeria has over like 400 or 300 ethnic groups just in Nigeria alone. You see what I'm
Mm.
saying? And if you go to China as an example, China has over 1 billion people, and they have like somewhere about 50 ethnic groups, different ethnic groups. You see what I'm saying? But when you have so many different ethnic groups in a small region like in Nigeria, which is really not that small when you really think about it, but still to have 300 to over 300 of them, it's harder for one person or one group to have so much power over everyone and to hold it if they do for so long. So there's going to be the shuffle of power, like you say, which is what African culture was always about. It wasn't necessarily about me being better than you. It's about what can you provide for everyone that lives in this community. And usually the people who were the smartest or the people who came up with the most, the most ingenuous ways of getting things done were the people that were put in prominent positions. And also it was depending on your family, right? Because that's where royalty comes from and things of that nature. But that also comes from the history of what your family did for the peoples. You understand what I'm trying to say? And so that, like I said, that's where the confusion falls in that, because there was no currency. Basically, the way you repaid your debt to someone was by providing your services, which is whatever you did. You understand what I'm saying? Whatever talent you brought to the table, that was your service that you brought. So, as an example, if you went to war and you lost the war, you as a soldier, as a general, or as the leader, chief that went into war with this other group, had to reconcile your differences, which means now you have to, like you said, assimilate, consolidate, or just outcast yourself, which basically means get away from everybody, get away from these groups, because now, like you said, they're going to become a bigger group. And the only way to become a bigger group is to make sure you don't, first of all, one, genocide, you don't kill everybody, you don't rape their women. You understand what I'm trying to say? Assimilate. You understand? You assimilate the society. But what you do is the people who lost, because you went through a battle, you went through wars, you had to reconcile your differences with the people who you are now going to be living with. So you, for a certain period of time, you showed humility and you worked your way into, and you can end up becoming what you would call a slave, a forced labored individual, to become an actual ruler of that same society. You see what I'm trying to say? So that's where the difference was at. But when the European entered Africa, they entered to actually pillage and take. Like, they were not looking for, you know what I'm saying, for diplomatic ways of doing things. They only went diplomatic because they realized they were dealing with so many great civilizations. They got to Africa and saw how great Africa was and how, how organized we were. You know what I'm saying? People don't understand that we were organized.
I don't agree on that.
You don't agree on that? I can show some examples of that.
There's no way you can be organized and let a few Europeans come and take over everything and take millions of people out your country. It's impossible.
Okay, well, you want to. Well, it's not that impossible when you have superior weaponry as the European had, and the actual fortitude to do it. Remember, they had the determination. It wasn't just having the technology. They actually had the fortitude. They actually needed this. This was for their survival.
That lets you know that people were not that organized, because organization would have shut that down. There would not have been people willing to sell people out for mirrors, alcohol, guns, or whatever kind of trinket. It's impossible. Just like in the black community now, you have one white or Asian come through in a whole black community and dominate the whole thing. South Africa, 90% black, 10% white, they dominate everything. So the people are not organized, and that was our major issue, is that we were not organized. It still is today.
Well, that's that's another thing. What you're basically saying is that we were not homogenous. We're not a homogenous group of Africans. That's the thing. It wasn't necessarily that we were not organized. Meaning organized is that when they reached the Fulani people and the Jollof people that were more northern, like by the Sierra Leone era, they saw organized city states. You understand what I'm saying? Different city states. You go further down the coast, where you get to the Gold Coast and the Bight of Benin, you see other cultures. You see what I'm saying? Then you go further down and you run across the Congo. You understand what I'm trying to say? These are different factions. Even though they're all African, there's no homogenous one.
That was the main, was the main problem amongst African people, was we were not intelligent enough to see that the skin color united us and their skin color unites them as the enemy. That was the what drew the line in the sand, and that's why we at where we're at today. And they were there, even though they're on a decline, Europeans on a decline, but this is how they, because they were able to lump. Okay, I don't care if you're Hausa, Zulu, whatever, all y'all coming on the ship.
Mm. Well, let me play a little quick video here for you that kind of explains how the Portuguese entered, because again, the Portuguese were the ones who initiated the whole African involvement in the slave trade and everything of that nature. So I got a quick video from a YouTube channel that I subscribe to. It's a history channel. It's called From Nothing. They did a good job on explaining what the Portuguese did when they first encountered West Africans. So let's just watch. It's a quick 2-3 minute video, but it's real good. I think you'll like this. Let's go ahead and listen to it.
Cape Verde Islands and Goree Island, and while doing so, he noticed large boats patrolling the nearby waters at a safe distance. You could tell that these locals were taking extra care not to venture too close to this strange alien vessel. The identities of these African warriors is unknown. However, they were most likely Neo-Minka warriors, armed with bows and poison-tipped arrows, tasked with guarding their Gambia River borders in an effort to protect their commercial interests. Though the strategy or method is unclear, the Portuguese caravel somehow managed to overtake one of the Neo-Minka boats and capture 4 men who were promptly taken back to Portugal. This marked the first direct encounter between sub-Saharan West Africans and Western Europeans. 2 years later, Nuno Tristão returned to the region, only to be instantaneously met with a fierce resistance. He attempted to row ashore with 2 boats carrying 12 men each, where he spotted a town that he intended to raid. Little did he know, they were being followed by a dozen or so canoes, carrying a total of 70 to 80 locals. Not only were he and his men showered in a rain of arrows, but their attackers proceeded to row out to sea and attack his ship and crew, resulting in a total of 19 dead out of a total of 28 crew members. Those who survived fled back to Portugal, with 2 of the wounded succumbing to the effects of poison arrows. In one instance, the caravel was actually hauled downriver by the Neo-Minka and dismantled. 1 year later, yet another expedition was sent out from Portugal, but this time it included several caravels. The ferocity and overall hostility of the Neo-Minka discouraged them from landing. Despite this, one caravel commander rowed ashore and placed down a cake, a mirror, and a piece of paper marked with a cross on it, for reasons that don't seem very clear, but I assume it was probably meant to be a gesture of peace. The Neo-Minka responded by promptly ripping the paper to shreds, tearing apart the cake and tossing it away, and throwing a javelin straight through the mirror. Infuriated, offended, afraid, or possibly a combination of all 3, Portuguese fired at the Neo-Minka warriors with their crossbows. The Neo-Minka fired back with their poison arrows, leading to many casualties on both sides. In 1455, yet another Portuguese caravel was confronted by a force of 17 canoes, with an estimated fighting force of 150 men. Dispatched by the ruler of the Jabra kingdom, the attackers were led to believe that white men were cannibals who sought to capture black people and consume them. These views parallel later European attitudes towards Africans, who would popularize the view of the barbaric African cannibal as a means to justify the exploitation of African peoples and their lands. It is not known exactly what ended the hostilities, with some sources claiming that the ruler of Portugal at the time sent Ambassador Diogo Gomes to establish peace, while other theories suggest that Portuguese military technology discouraged further fighting. Regardless of the reason, Cadamosto made a voyage into the Gambia in 1456, was allowed to pass into the river without any opposition. It is also during this time that the Portuguese had formally established friendly relationships with the Jolop Empire and the Fula Fuda Toro, relations that likely mediated and pacified the conflicts of the Neo-Minka, as well as offer a new perspective for the Portuguese, learned that initiating trade relations among West African peoples peacefully was much more profitable than initiating it through violence or coercion.
All right, so I mean, so you see what you were saying about how they were trying to bring like stuff like mirrors, cakes. You know what I'm saying? They were trying their different ways, but of course they also tried to do it by force. You see what I'm saying? Because the first encounter they snatched up some Africans and brought them back to Portugal. So again, that shows you the veracity of the European desire to actually explore and find what they were looking for, which was basically more resources, more spices, you know what I'm saying, more gold. That's what they were looking for. And the reason that this is important is because Prince the Navigator, which is known as the guy that basically changed the whole maritime for Europe. You see what I'm saying? This guy wasn't even a navigator. He just came across some maps, and he created a school in Portugal, which allowed them to be like far ahead of all other European nations when it comes to navigating the seas and finding your way around. And they actually came up with a ship which you hear him say was called a caravel, and the caravel was a ship that allowed them to go against the wind. You feel what I'm trying to say? So they could always go back home, because if they would have ventured into African shores or African waters, they would have been stuck. They would have never been able to actually get back to Europe. So they were able to explore further. That's why they were the first to reach African shores and to do what they did. But you saw the video. What do you think? I don't know if you're familiar with that channel, but I thought that was a good video for what we were going to be talking about.
To be honest with you, it's the sound was kind of low.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, I would have to watch it after the video, but yeah, I couldn't really hear much of it.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's why you probably need some headphones when you're doing this. But yeah, again, they talked about the African boats though. You see, they were well organized. They had, they had, patrolmen, people that were, taking care of whatever the borders of whatever boundaries of these nations and these different city states that Africans had. So there was a sense of organization, but like you said, there wasn't a sense of unification. You see what I'm trying to say?
That was the problem. Yeah, unification.
Exactly. So, and then what happens is you get the Spanish that come later on, right? And now they're negotiating with other African groups, right? And creating a like he said, they were becoming more friendly, because the thing about our real problem was we were eager traders. We want to trade. We were looking. We love foreigners coming in with stuff and items. What you got? Let's. We loved it. We were the number one. That was our economy. You see what I'm saying? So the best rulers and the best kingdoms were kingdoms that had the safest trade routes for merchants to go from place to place. You see what I'm trying to say? So that's how an African country became wealth, by having a lot of merchants, having different products and resources for merchants. You see what I'm saying? At that time, gold and salt actually was the same value in Africa.
Damn, and Mansa Musa had a lot of gold. Well, I heard he was a slave. They said the biggest slave trader ever was a black man named Tipple Tip. You ever heard of him?
No, I've never heard of him.
He was he was an Arab father and a African mother, and he made a lot of I wouldn't call it money, but he gained a lot of resources through the slave trade.
Okay. Well, you see that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that was another thing that was brought up during my studies. Was another thing was the time frame of when Europeans arrived, right? Because another thing about one of the reasons, like the King Alfonso, the king of the Congo, he converted to Christianity because he wanted help from the Portuguese to help him deal with the civil wars or the issues he was having in his city state. So he was
he called the white man. He called the white man to help.
Well, he thought they can help, right? They have military power. You see what I'm saying? They have weapons. You see what I'm trying to say? They can help us secure our boundaries. You see what I'm saying? And the naive, the naiveness of African people not realizing the evilness of the European and what the European is really trying to do. You see what I'm trying to say?
Take everything.
Exactly. So meanwhile, while you're dealing with the Portuguese, the Spanish or the Dutch are dealing with your rivals and telling your rivals, hey, these people are over here rounding up to come get you, but we'll give you guns if you could bring people to us. And because Africans were known for trading prisoners of war, at first it was like, okay, you're just taking these people. They didn't know what they were doing with these people. A lot of the times, these people didn't know where they were being taken to. Because like you said, when you was a slave in Africa, you were still a part of the society. You were still a free man. You was able to have your family. You was able to have your religion, your culture, all of that. You just had to pay off your debt for whatever deeds that you did that didn't fit right with the people you're with. You know what I'm saying? Just like now, right? If you and I get into a beef and you admit you're wrong, right? Your natural sense would be, well, let me reconcile with my brother.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm trying to say? Because I want to live with you. If not, we're gonna beef and you're gonna go your own separate way, right? And we're gonna try to avoid one another. But that's what people don't get when we, again, you have to understand African culture, African societies. And again, we were not, one homogenous group. So we can't say because the Ashanti was selling the Hosai or the Hosai was selling the Ashanti that these people were sellouts to one another, because they necessarily weren't a group of people together. They were separate people. You see what I'm saying? That lived separately. And what their problem was, the incursion of Europeans kept coming. It was hard because you even had, like I tell people, man, even the king's soldiers were mercenaries.
Oh, okay.
You feel me? So it wasn't even like the king had rulership over his own army. He had to pay them for them to be a part of his. You understand what I'm saying? To be the army, you had to pay them. You had to take care of them. You see what I'm trying to say? So here comes the European telling you as a rogue tribe, right? That you're just soldiers. That's what you do. You warriors. That's where you're predicated on. We're gonna give you some guns. You just got to make sure whenever you round up, whoever you round up, bring them to us. You know, and even if you wasn't doing that, you know what I'm saying? Dr. Clark said it best. It's he said it's either they came with the Bible or they came with the rifle. You make the choice.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
but you got to also remember the element that a lot of people saw it as a come up, like the dude Tipple Tip.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there were a lot of. I know the Ashanti Nation got rich off of selling slaves. Still rich. They still are rich to the tribe today. The Dahomey Nation sold. They said 400,000 that people that wound up in America were kidnapped by them. A lot of people, man. That was like the drug trade of that time. That's how I look at it. You came up. You got rewarded, just like our people love Gucci and Prada and all these European trinkets today. They'll sell out anybody, their mother for that, their brother, they kill anybody for it. That mentality had to be around from back then. You had people that were opportunists. Oh, this white man coming with this. He want, all I gotta do is bring these people, and now the things are so decimated now that you was a slave trader on Monday and a slave on Tuesday.
But that's how it shows how it's really like I tell people, it's a system that they created. It's a market that they created. There wasn't a market in African culture.
They created the market, but we had the product.
Yeah, exactly. And not only we had the product, we had the means, because they had to use us to do it. Because like I tell people, you could have said no and kept running, but but that causes more trouble, because the migration of running away from this, right? Running away from trying to be hunted and becoming enslaved created people going to other regions, which created more problems. Because now, you understand what I'm saying? Now you got a group of people showing up into your region because they're afraid, because supposedly somebody's chasing after them. But now you have to try to, the hospitality of Africans was you always opened your doors to a stranger. So now you have new people in your lands, and that creates chaos there. And what does chaos create? More opportunity for slaves. So the European, go ahead.
I think that's how the Zulu wound up in South Africa, because the Zulu's not from South Africa.
No, they're not. They're not.
Only the Khoisan is from there. Yeah, the Zulu. I think the Zulus came running from the slave trade, based on some information I came. Because the Zulus, they look like me, the dark skin type, but that dark skin phenotype is not native to South Africa. The native nation, no, the native tribe of South Africa is the Khoisan. They like your complexion.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So the regular dark skin, that was from West Africa in the middle center. But that's basically what I'm saying. Us not being unified, and there being sellouts, just like brothers will sell crack to their neighbors. Your girl could be pregnant and on crack, and the brothers will still serve her whatever drug she look. That mentality been around 500 years, where people don't care. Little kids, grandma, grandpa, I'm coming to get them, and that's why I put it on us, because they came with what they came with. But there's no reason that the population of Africa is billions today, but let's say it was 400 million. They probably didn't even have 1 million people. How does less than 1% of your population take over the whole thing without people being seriously incompetent?
Because Africans' greatest attribute is also their greatest downfall. Like you said, that just you allowing these people to enter Africa and having the history of understanding, every time someone entered your area, they never entered as truly as a friend or as someone of peace. They always came to take something from you and create some kind of chaos and disorder. but the Africans never really took that seriously, because just like now, we're so quick to forgive, we're so quick to, because of our nature. Our nature itself is to be humble, it's to be a part of understanding balance. You see what I'm saying? Live to let live. It's like they didn't, even it's like you say, still to this day, brother, like, you know what I'm saying, where they can, look what Stephen A. Smith said just yesterday about Jerry Jones, bro. He's
What do
literally
you say?
you know what I'm saying? Oh, you didn't hear what he said? He was saying
Nah.
that he's upset that we're upset that we found Jerry Jones was a part of a white racist mob that was keeping black people from going to school in Arkansas in the 50s.
I heard about that part. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? He's saying that we're reaching, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was upset that we're actually requiring him to answer or to justify himself. And which reality, he has no justification for what he did.
But I think the thing about that is when these guys start making all that fiat currency and they loyal to their master, now we go to the slave. We go from the shores of Africa into the Caribbean and America. 2-3 generations down, you got these house slaves, light skinned majority, and they benefit from their role as a slave. They're not in the fields. They like Malcolm said, they dress better than you. They ate better than you. That's these millionaires, LeBron James, and they can't identify with this master. Master treat me good, So that's what that is. He's a modern day. He's in the house. So the slaves in the field. Why are you mad at master? That's all that is.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's easy to just point out the few that were like what you would consider traitors or things of that nature, because
I don't think it was a few. It had to be a whole lot. You're talking about 16 million people being taken out of somewhere, bro.
Yeah, and you're talking about a small group of people that can do that. That's what I'm saying. It's a small group of people that are doing that. Because like when you said the Ashanti have been wealth, what wealth do they have? Like I said, they only got guns and rum. So what wealth did they get?
Well, they still one of the wealthiest. They still one of the wealthiest nations in West Africa today, though.
The Ashanti actually came up during the middle of the slave trade, also. So they were. You know what I'm saying? They were also a country that had to survive during that period of time, just like the Shaka Zulu. Because one thing about Shaka Zulu or the Zulus is they changed African culture too. They changed African warfare because they were.
Shaka Zulu is way later though. That's way later. That's 1800s.
That's the 1800s. But the Ashanti kingdom didn't start to the 18th century, which was the 1700s. So that's just a century before Shaka. You feel me? So even the Dahomey people, they came later on too in the 1600s. So these are all nations that arose during the dawn of European exploitation of African cultures and African societies. And remember, like I said, because of all the migrations and the downfall of different African societies and great African states, you end up having all these little scattered states now fighting for survival. You see what I'm trying to say? And the only way to survive is to have a gun. And guess what? The only way to get a gun is to give up some people that you captured. So you're almost in a conundrum. You know what I'm saying? You can either let them capture you, or you can capture some people, and hopefully you don't necessarily. And that's the thing too. My studies don't see where kings and rulers and nations were doing it. Like I said, there was rogue tribes and rogue people that were doing it, and because they had the weapons, it was hard to stop them. You know what I'm saying? Because they were organized. Africans didn't have an organized state. They just followed suit with the system that, you know what I'm saying, like you said, that was for survival purposes.
That's wrong though, bro, because what they call that, when the Europeans used to dock their boats, they had to pay, give resources to the African kingdom. The African kingdoms signed off on slavery, bro.
But that's not what they did. Because like right now, here we go. The first king that they dealt with was King Alfonso, right? And when King Alfonso found out, this is in 1526, right? This is Nzinga Mbemba, the king of Jau. Okay, this is King Alfonso. He converted to Christianity. His father was one of the first to deal with the Europeans and the Portuguese. Like I said at first, this is what he wrote to the king of Portugal. He goes, "Sir, Your Highness should know how our kingdom is being lost in so many ways that it is convenient to provide the necessity remedy. Since this is caused by the excessive freedom given by your agents and officials to the men and merchants who are allowed to come to this kingdom and set up shops with goods and many things which have been prohibited by us. So there you go. They were saying like, yo, we allow you guys to come into this country as merchants. You're supposed to be coming in here with things, and you're dealing with our merchants. We don't control what you're doing. You're allowed to just come in and out and market your way through the ports and do what you want to do. But what they were starting to do was they started to snatch up people. And that's not what the king was expecting them to do. He was telling them, you got to stop snatching up people. You're even grabbing people that's in the royal house that are nobles. You're taking sons of nobles. And he said, when we actually approach you, he even says that, he said, when we approach you, and my shoulders approach you and ask you, where do you find these people from? You can't tell us where you bought them from. So, and then when I tell you have to let them go, you get upset with me. So again, the naivety of the king was, I'm dealing with the European as my friend. So you're telling me you're coming here to do noble things, like bring Christianity, you know what I'm saying, build churches, build schools, but in reality, you're not sending priests. You're not sending these people. You're sending merchants, and all these merchants you're sending are trying to snatch up the people from my region. You're not supposed to do that. You're depopulating my region. And
that's one king, but there were African kings that signed off.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But that was the first one. They were the first one to build the Fort Elmina. You know, the Elmina Fort Castle, and that's the largest fort in Africa, slave fortress in Africa. They were able to build that off of that relationship with that Congo kingdom, because that Congo kingdom was one of the largest kingdoms at that time. So they were able to set up fort on their shores because of, for one, they came in there with force, and then they came in and said, hey, we want to just trade with you. We want to be able to just, like you said, silk, we want copper, we want gold. They were looking for gold, but when they realized, oh, we can just get people. And mind you, the slave trade didn't really kick off till the 1600s too. It didn't even start in the first 1500s. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of people, that's why I say, like I said, man, it's a tough discussion because there's a lot. Like you said, we've already gone over half an hour, bro. We can go for hours with this, bro. There's so much information that we could talk about with this. It's really deep. It really is. It really is, man.
Yeah. And what do you think about the whole reparations discussion?
It's necessary. It's necessary. It's necessary. You're of African American descent, right? You are like what they call FBA, Foundational Black American.
1 and 1.
Oh, you're 1 and 1. So you do have some immigrant or somewhat Caribbean bloodline?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you know I'm Haitian. I'm 100% Haitian. All my family members come from Haitian. I'm a first generation born American. Haitian. I believe African Americans not only deserve reparations, they should be given reparations instantaneously. How you calculate the amount, I don't know how you do that, but it's necessary.
Who qualifies as an African American? What is the qualifications?
Now that would be the tough part. You would definitely have to trace your ancestry to the American shores during the 1800s, at least. I would say.
I don't even know if I can do that. What about adopted people? That's blacker than me. It's
but that's what that would be, again, that would be tough. You
got a lot of white people people who know their lineage better, because their records will preserve better. Or they say, great uncle Stanley, grandpa Stanley, he was half black. So does that entitle me now? And these are people that look like Biden and Trump talking about reparations now.
I mean,
so that whole
they gave it to the Indians, and the Indians had the same issue.
The same game that went on. And look at Indians now. I met a few of them. The Indians are poor as hell now. They talk about how did it really benefit them?
See, again, I'm not saying reparations is going to necessarily just benefit black folk, because there are going to be a lot of black folks that will fumble the bag, right? You know what I'm saying? You and I both know that. But I do believe that it will help, because there are going to be some black folks that will do good use.
But what we're gonna do reparations and act like we're not slaves now, right?
Okay. We're gonna keep acting like slaves, because we got, like you said, we got the slave mentality. Until you get rid of the slave mentality, you're still gonna have.
So you give us reparations for chattel slavery, but you're mandating that I gotta poke something in my arm to keep my job. So I'm free. I didn't want to bring the conversation over there, but it's a whole new form of slavery that, okay,
Um,
we apologize for chattel. Okay, but we're gonna put you in jail for a bag of crack. They ain't doing that no more. But this was the '90s,
yeah,
so it's
but
like they have. Only thing that happened is they don't need the whipping chain no more. They got fiat. You a slave to the fiat. So the reparations. I mean, if they're gonna write me a check, I'm gonna take it. But they have kept slavery going, but have it in a more convenient way that is less dangerous to them. Dealing with human beings, chaining them up, and some slaves might cut your throat every now and then. But
yeah.
this type of comfortable slavery where print money endlessly, and it's a whole different type. So that it'd be a laugh at people to give us reparations. I mean, I would take it, but it would. I mean, everything
I
is
don't
still going.
I don't think I would be qualified for reparations unless they
You,
included the Caribbean islands that went along with
you
it.
you would have to get it from the French.
Well, but that's the thing. America has a lot to do with what goes on in Haiti and Jamaica and all that other stuff too. People don't, the British sent a lot of African enslaved Africans to Jamaica when they lost America. You feel me?
Oh, okay,
You see what
okay.
I'm saying? They sent a lot of Africans to the Bahamas and all those islands that they controlled in the Windward and Leeward Islands over there.
Yeah, so I'm saying, look what they're doing to the Haitians. Haiti, I know you're not really that in touch with people over there, but
Mhm.
Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So reparations for something that happened in the 1800s, but Haiti, they kicked 25,000 asylum asylum seekers out of
Mhm.
the country this year by an administration. So what is this? What is this apology mean? I mean, it's a joke. My take on it is that it's the same. Like I said, it's a slavery, but it's in a modified, more convenient sense. And they don't care about people the same. It's the same slave masters, but they're doing it a different way. And our people sold us or traded us to them.
Well, that's our thing. We have
And
to remember they're not our people. As much as black folk have been able to create a solidarity around being black and our struggles and what we go through as a black culture and black folk in general, a lot of
yeah,
our people are not our people. There's a lot of people that are not going to be saved. If there was a revolution, there's a lot of our people that will be eliminated. It's not like we're going to save 100% of black people. I wouldn't even say 50% of black people are worthy of saving, but
yeah,
it's not even the fact that I'm not doing it for them though. They're not the ones you do it for. You see what I'm trying
I
to say?
get you. I get you. I get you.
Um,
Shit.
so you're right because Andrew Tate, that guy who got banned off the social media, said this. He said that during chattel slavery, you worked all day long and you got a place to sleep and you got food to
Eat.
eat. And
Mm.
today you work all day long for money that allows you to purchase a place to sleep and food to
It's
eat.
the same thing. It's
He
the
was
same
saying
thing.
he said it's the same damn
It
thing.
just, they don't got to beat nobody today.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. He said they don't have to do it. They don't have to. And that's what they learned when they actually abolished slavery. It wasn't because of moral principles. It was
They
actually
didn't need it.
yeah, it was exactly. To create a better society, to move further into the industrial age, you have to get rid of slavery. You can't have slavery. Because that's why I tell people that's why slavery didn't exist in the way that you saw it in America in ancient times, because you cannot build great civilizations based off slavery. You cannot
They,
enforce.
they, they didn't they didn't need it. But the European needed people to pick the sugar cane so we could export it, the cotton.
Well, that's
He
why they
needed.
could. That's why they couldn't enslave the European, and that's why I tell people, even in Europe, I gotta tell people the Egyptians built the pyramids.
So
Timbuktu,
that was not slaves. Those were skilled craftsmen.
yeah, same thing in Rome. The Colosseum was built by Romans. The Stonehenge
Mm.
was built by Englishmen. You see what I'm trying to say?
Hmm.
The Mayan temples were built by Mayans. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
They didn't go snatch up some people from some other place and was like, here, make these rocks and do. No, they have a culture and a society where people were learning how to actually be a part of it. And that was being a part of it. And that's why I tell people slavery in America had to end, because you would have never got the factories and the industrial age that we got into with all the steel
Yeah.
and all the stuff that went on during the late 1800s and the turn of the 20th century. So, but again, I believe black folks in America deserve the reparations because it's a part of the healing process. Economically, it's necessary. Beyond the chattel slavery, we're talking about Jim Crow laws. We're talking about redlining black folk from having property and housing, keeping black folks away from education, burning down black businesses, black communities, with white mobs. You see what I'm saying? It's
So what number you think would be realistic that you know
I believe the numbers that they were talking were in the trillions.
per person I'm talking about?
Oh, per person. What would be a fair? I believe what they calculated it was somewhere around. I believe it was like $1.2 million per person.
This realistically speaking, if every black person gets $1 million in account, you know how much industries die in one day? There's no more Walmart
You know how
employees no more.
you know how many business. Well, first of all, a lot of people gonna quit their jobs, so there's gonna be a
And
lot
that's
of.
going to destroy the whole society because black people work in every sector of this country.
and
So you
every
think
and every civil section. Remember, all the most social workers, all the civil workers, and people that work in the civil industries are all black folks.
everything, bro, it has representation. So you think this they just gonna destroy their whole economy? Everybody gonna quit their job, bro.
Yeah.
Come on, bro. I
I tell
mean,
you what, there would be some stocks like Dave Chappelle said, Kentucky Fried Chicken stock, Popeye stocks to
yeah,
go.
everybody got a rap studio. Yeah, I mean, I would take the money, but I'm just saying, realistically speaking, bro.
You would get
I
half the
mean,
money.
like,
You would get half the money. You get half the money because you are half and half. So you get half.
yeah, but yeah, I
See, like
guess
I wouldn't
so.
think I get for me, I don't think I deserve the money. Because like I said, if it's going to African Americans, I'm not of African American. Again,
Lineage.
I'm not. I'm not. My family came from a different form of racism.
But I
Uh,
mean, if America did it, then that would open up France, that would open up Britain, that would open up Portugal, that would open up Spain. So it wouldn't be just America. That would be, but we could get it done. But if we're powerful enough to accomplish that, then we would be intelligent enough where we realize we don't even need it because fiat currency is nothing but debt. So we're giving you a debt because I owe you something. So they're not even giving us nothing
well,
in this current.
it'll be a start. Like I said, it wouldn't. It's not going to change things overnight. Definitely won't change things overnight
Yeah, but
because
I don't think we could. I don't think we're intelligent enough to work that out, and they don't care enough. They don't
um,
care enough to give it to us, and we're not. Black people love voting for the Democrats. Vote blue, no matter who. But they don't push that on them. That
no,
okay, and us for order for us to vote for you, you have to give us this.
yeah. Well, the
So
reason
they
like
don't care.
yeah, the
Hmm?
reason the Indians get reparations is because they can be secluded to a certain reservation. Again, they're only like 1% of the population, all Native Americans
Mm,
in the United States, basically.
okay.
So like right where I live at in Hollywood, Florida, there's a Seminole reservation, Seminole Indian reservation, and they bank money because they give them casinos. So they're allowed. First of all, they were allowed to sell tobacco tax free. So they used to make money
Mm,
selling. They used to make money selling cigarettes like a motherfucker. And then they were allowed to have a casino. And now because they own Hard Rock, they're like, forget it. They got so much money, it's crazy. But they're told to stay on the reservation. They're told to not leave the reservation. They don't have to pay for a house. They don't have to pay for light. They're given vehicles at 16 years old. They get monthly checks as soon as they're born. Depending on their age, the money gets higher. When I was a kid, when I was younger, this was in the 90s. A teenage Seminole Indian got somewhere between like $1,400 a month back then
damn.
per child.
So that's probably like 2,500 now.
Well, much more now. From what I understand now, I don't have any Indian friends that I can verify this with, but from what I heard, they're giving them like 4 or 5 grand for kids now. And as an
Damn.
adult,
Oh, so they really did get reparations.
so they did get it got so bad that they had to actually block off their reservation because they were having problem with drugs. Because again, what are you
Mm,
gonna do? What are you gonna do with all that money? You can't go nowhere. They're told to stay in the reservation because if they get over for drunk driving, they're not going to jail. They're just gonna get sent home. You see what I'm trying to say? Like they have their own police department. They have their own, their own judicial system. So it's their own.
mm.
It's not actually U.S. territory. When you're on Seminole land, it's actually Seminole land. It doesn't belong to the United States. You're out of the United States jurisdiction. So they tell them stay there because it's safer for them there. Even though they do roam and go out and have, fun and go shopping and, live their life. But majority of them stay on the reservation. And it's like that on all reservations in across the United States. And that's why they have drug issues and alcoholic issues, because they have all this money and they can't really do nothing with it. They don't have to pay rent. They don't have to pay for light. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to pay for most of their stuff because it's all given to them by the tribe.
I wonder how they were able to work that out with the government. That's interesting. We're not able to work out. Well, I guess like Candace Owens,
enslaved. That's how they did it. That's basically how they did it. Keeping black.
Well, you see, they give them all of this fiat and taking care of them, but it's really not doing nothing for them. Like you were saying, they a bunch of drunks and alcoholics and they slaves basically. And if you look at what happened with our people, welfare and food stamps the last 40, 50 years, single mother homes, it has done nothing for us. So they can't even give us nothing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's been promoted in our community too, is the idea of individualistic mind state, right? It's all about me, do what I gotta do for me. But Claude Anderson said it best, brother. The best way to have economics in this country is group economics. And we're playing a team sport, not an individual sport. This is chess, not checkers. So, like I tell people, you can reach the other side of the board in checkers and you be crowned king. That don't happen here in chess. When you're a chess player and you get to the other side of the board, you're just on the other side of the board. That's all that is. You're still a pawn.
It goes back to that slave trader mentality. I want to sell this drug or wrap this stuff, and I want to get rewarded by, the European. I want to wear his Gucci chain, his big Jesus piece. I want a Ferrari. That's the problem. The love of these Caucasians.
Yeah, and that is a part of it. You know what I'm saying? That was one of the things that, again, this is a good book to get if anybody wants to get a chance.
That's a classic right here.
And this book, he states that he says that we can't absolve the African traders that sold Africans into this because of the love of European trinkets and European culture. That was one thing that the Congo leader was. He was infatuated with being a Christian. He thought that they were noble people. So he was infatuated. You know what I'm saying? He saw, again, the Africans were always intrigued by new things, and same thing we are now. We're always intrigued by fashion and just being unique and different. So we just saw something unique and different and thought that they were like us, but in reality, they were not like us. They were far from what we ever thought they would have ever been. They are more wicked than anything. And the Africans were just not prepared for it. It's just like, like your grandma, right? Your grandma wouldn't expect you to rob and steal from her when she let you in her house for Thanksgiving. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that happens, right? When you let the crackhead uncle come in, or the crackhead, family member in the drug addict family member in there, they'll steal from you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
You know what I'm saying? So you're right, but again, they know how to do it. It's just like how they do with the gang members now, right? We weren't the ones that created gangs. We didn't have gangs in the 1920s and the 1910s and shit like that. That was a European shit. But we adopted it. We adopted it as a survival, right? Because now we were in white communities, right? When we started going from the South and going into the West Coast and going into the Midwest and going into New York and going up north, now we're surrounded by white people. We had to bond closer. We created gangs. So what those gangs do now? Those gangs get guns and alcohol, right? And they pin us against one another, and they tell people, well, look, this is how they act, this is how they behave. And that's what they did with the slave trade. It's the same exact thing. They said, these people are separating themselves, they're identifying themselves as different groups. Well, we're gonna give one group guns and liquor, the other group guns and liquor, and sit back and watch the chaos and profit from it.
Yeah, that's exact. Yeah, it's the same mentality. Yeah,
it is.
And
bro.
then
it's really
in
sad,
New York,
bro.
Yeah, instead of guns and liquor, it's crack and guns.
Well, it's everything. They tried it with heroin in the 70s and the 60s.
Yeah.
You feel me? They tried it with AIDS in the 80s and crack in the 80s. You feel me? Then they did it with the guns in the 90s and rap music. You feel me?
Yeah.
And now it's with social media and healthcare. They
and the music.
Well, they kept the music. They've destroyed our music. We don't have
this new GMO weed too.
Oh, forget about that. There, yeah, forget about
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
the what's called the Nation of Islam talks about that, about how the marijuana is used to boost
Effeminate.
it's to boost estrogen in men. It boosts
Yeah,
estrogen in
because it's a feminine. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Especially this new stuff. That's why if I blaze, which I rarely do, I get the old school rags, man, with the seeds. Yeah, you have it. How long? How long since you saw that?
It's been a few years, especially down here where I'm from. The difference is that the market's actually even more saturated now because they gave out so many licenses. Because you said it's legal now in a lot of states, so
Yeah,
a lot of people who are entrepreneurs are trying to enter the industry, and they're giving out a lot of licenses for people to grow marijuana, and there's no real regulation on how they're growing it, when they're what they're supposed to do. There's the FDA is not really involved, so
yeah,
the weed that's hitting the market, you don't know where it's coming from, who's making it, how it's being made, where it's being grown.
exactly,
So
exactly.
it is a dangerous market. Uh, you got to have your plug
Yeah,
though. You got to
and
have your plugs. You got to have your plugs.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Word.
man. But brother, it's been a good conversation, man. We went well further than we needed to. I guess we're gonna I guess we got to accept that there are some sellouts in our community, and
Yeah,
you
still
have
here today, unfortunately.
you have to identify them, but we know who's the true conspirators of these sellouts, who's really funding them,
Yeah,
promoting them, putting them in positions of power for them to actually be
yeah.
able to do the things that they do. It's not hard to do that when like you
Even
said.
even in Haiti today, the soldiers, the foot soldiers, is working for the same slave master, the Syrians, and all of these same people, man.
But
Some of these videos, I don't know if you're getting these videos on WhatsApp from Haiti, man. You getting any of these? Oh, they savaging, man.
Man, no, I know you sent
Um,
me a video that was kind of brutal to watch. But again, it's the same thing, right? Because you have the U.S. coming with their bullshit, you have Canada coming in with their bullshit, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just like now, the Dominicans are doing what they're doing because America's forcing them to do it.
Oh, what is the Dominicans doing?
They're basically migrating all Haitians out. Anybody who they feel they're not Dominicans are getting transported to Haiti.
That
And now
came recently or in any
they don't
time?
it don't matter if you're not to them, if you're not Dominicans, and they even try to pass laws to where you have to have your grandparents born in Dominican Republic to be considered Dominican.
Oh, damn.
They had a video the other day of a Haitian lady that they wouldn't accept her in the hospital, and they forced her to have the baby outside on the
Oh my
hospital floor.
God, these some. Oh, they going savage.
Yeah, and they're locking their borders. They're rounding up Haitians left and right, and it's so bad that the U.S. Travel agency said that they're warning dark-skinned Americans about going to Dominican Republic and possibly
Oh
being
my
detained
God.
for being considered Haitian. That's how bad it's getting.
Oh my God.
But I remember I told you when Biden got elected, I made sure I posted that Haiti was going to be in trouble. As soon as the Democrats get in office, Haiti's going to be in trouble. So,
Mm,
yeah.
that's
Again,
deep.
Haiti is another reason why they won't allow us to be free, because Haiti is a symbol of African brilliance and freedom. And
Yeah, yeah,
they're always gonna keep Haiti in a position to where they can always say, look, these people are not, you can't give them freedom. Look what they do with it. Like
yeah.
look how you sound about reparations. Don't give them reparations. Look what they're gonna do with reparations. You give them
No,
freedom.
I mean, yeah,
I know.
we like you said, we deserve it. Yeah, give it to the people. But I mean, I'm just saying to give reparations while we're still in slavery, but it'd be a slap in the face because they don't need chattel. The only reason why they got rid of chattel slavery is because it's not needed. This
Yeah.
kind of slavery now, where I can whip you with the fiat, like what they did with Kanye. Kanye said, they stopped him from using his Apple Pay recently.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
They recently pulled Kyrie Irving. They was one step before, bending him over. We still enslaved. So, okay, you're gonna give us a bunch of fiat now, but tomorrow you still hate us, and you still. I mean, it's like,
Now it's sick,
um,
brother. It's a hard time to live in, but it's the world we live in, brother. And all we can do is live our life accordingly. And like I tell people, man, I live for my people, and I'm gonna continue to do that. I got kids that I gotta raise, or children that I gotta put on this earth, and they're gonna be the ones to carry the torch, because that's all I can do. Because like you said, it is a
yeah,
struggle. it is a struggle, bro. It is a struggle. We're gonna lose a lot of battles before the victory is truly won. So
That's real. That's real.
yeah,
That's
man.
definitely real.
So I'll catch you on Facebook, brother. I want to thank everybody for joining us. You can catch this. I'm gonna tag you. Peace and blessings, brother. We'll see you soon, man. Thanks for joining me. This is Speaking with Ajani Bakari Talk Show. Y'all peoples be good, man. Thanks a lot, brother.